Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Trilbee and welcome to my review of the latest Marvel Cinematic Universe installment, Black Panther, directed by Ryan Coogler and written by Ryan Coogler and also Joe Robert Cole. Black Panther takes place shortly after the events of Captain America's Civil War, where the king of the African nation Wakanda, King T'Chaka, was killed by Baron Zemo. So now the king's son, T'Challa, played by Chadwick Boseman, returns back home to Wakanda to inherit the mantle of the Black Panther. While the rest of the world thinks that Wakanda is a third world country, in reality it's a technologically advanced civilization which has been built on a meteorite containing vibranium, which is one of the strongest elements on Earth. And the people of Wakanda want to try and keep the vibranium for themselves and prevent it from falling into the wrong hands, and also from sharing their vast knowledge and experiences with the rest of the world. However, this ethos is put to the test when a known enemy of Wakanda, Ulysses Claw, played by Andy Serkis, teams up with US Black Ops soldier Eric Stevens, played by Michael B. Jordan, to try and acquire the vibranium and bring Wakanda down from within. The first thing to stand out with Black Panther really is its production design, done by Hannah Beachler, who is incidentally the first woman to have the position in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The world of Wakanda just feels so lived in and alive, and the inspiration taken from Afrofuturism just translates perfectly with the Jack Kirby and Stan Lee inspiration from the comics. The film feels almost akin to Star Wars and how it fully realises this world and allows the audience to really get immersed into this entirely new culture and civilization that, even in the realms of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, feels completely out there and different and brilliant. And it's not just Star Wars, we also seem to have influences from James Bond, where we even have a couple of sequences where T'Challa is being shown all of the new gadgets and the suits and all of the wares from his sister Shuri, played by Letitia Wright. Shuri is essentially the Black Panther equivalent of Q from James Bond, where she creates all of these unique and interesting gadgets. In regards to Black Panther's place in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it does have a lot of previous staples that we've come to know. For example, how the villain kind of becomes a mirror version of the hero. But even though this is the first time we're seeing Wakanda in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and seeing this technology for the first time, the movie doesn't feel bogged down in exposition and trying to explain how everything works. Through a great combination of the dialogue and the really enthusiastic performances, I was never bored by Black Panther. And Chadwick Boseman gives a terrific lead performance as well. I've been championing Chadwick Boseman for years, since I first saw him in 42 where he played Jackie Robinson, and I thought back then that he was going to go on and do great things, and then all of a sudden he's cast as Black Panther and I feel massively vindicated, and he really pulls it out of the bag here. We kind of got a sense of the type of character and person he was in Captain America Civil War, but here we take the mask off and we reveal his insecurities, how he wants to try and live up to his father's legacy, and then that's sort of betrayed over the course of the movie, but more on that later. T'Challa is charming, he's smart, he's a really well-rounded and grounded character despite him being in this incredibly ludicrous and fun world. And the film gives us a who's who of terrific African-American talent, whether it's Forrest Whitaker as Zuri, who plays an elder statesman in Wakanda, who is sort of a secondary father figure to T'Challa. Angela Bassett as Ramonda, who is T'Challa's mother. Lupita Nyong'o plays T'Challa's love interest, although I thought the character was a bit underwritten. Dana Gurira is terrific as the leader of this all-female Wakandan Special Forces. Daniel Kaluuya plays W'Kabi, a friend to T'Challa. Winston Duke is M'Baku, who is the leader of the Wakanda mountain tribe, the Jabari, who is also a lot of fun in this film. And Letitia Wright, who I mentioned earlier, essentially gets the star-making turn of this movie. She is the breakout performer. She does a terrific job. She's really, really fun. She's funny. And even though one of her lines of dialogue is literally a meme, it didn't seem grating to me. But while the cast is absolutely terrific, the real standout of Black Panther is Ryan Coogler, the director and co-writer. This is a young director. He's only in his early 30s, but he has done 3 terrific films, and this guy has kind of burst onto the Hollywood scene. He is the definition of an auteur filmmaker. He wrote and directed Fruitvale Station, a small, independent, low-budget film starring Michael B. Jordan, which is a terrific, amazing drama. Then a couple of years later, he has a slightly bigger budget project in Creed, which is a film that he actually pitched to Sylvester Stallone, and Stallone liked the pitch so much that they decided to make it. And once again, that had Michael B. Jordan in it, and now we have Black Panther, once again also with Michael B. Jordan. These two are basically the Scorsese and DiCaprio for the new generation. And one thing that has been ever present in Ryan Coogler's work is, and I know some of you are going to hate me for even saying the word, political as hell. Black Panther is a righteous movie. It has so much on its mind, and it talks about Jim Crow laws, African American incarceration, 17th to 18th century slavery, inner city black poverty. It indirectly calls out President Trump, makes the movie about the importance of globalism and the perils of neocolonialism and isolationism, and even though the path forward to a better world is very, very clear, the sins of our ancestors may make real progress incredibly difficult. This movie is loaded. It's marinating in political text. It's not subtext. This is full-on text in the movie. Michael B. Jordan's last line of dialogue in the movie is an absolute gut punch, the likes of which the MCU hasn't had for a long time. Ryan Coogler swung for the fences here, and in my opinion, he hit it out of the park. In fact, I'm actually kind of amazed that Disney looked at his screenplay and his themes and everything the movie was trying to say and go for, and decided, yes, this is still worth a $200 million budget. We are confident in Ryan Coogler's vision. We endorse what he has to say. Here's this massive budget. Go nuts and do whatever you want to do, Mr. Coogler. And despite the fact that Disney does stumble quite often with its blockbuster films and some of its larger projects, it still has this auteur theory sense. Whether it's Ryan Coogler here with Black Panther or Taika Waititi for Thor Ragnarok, the Russo brothers for the Captain America movies and the upcoming Avengers films, and James Gunn with the Guardians of the Galaxy films, it's great that Disney actually allowed the directors to have their own personal stamp on a film. And I think Black Panther is the epitome of that. This movie also uses its themes and its subtext and text in order to sidestep an issue that the MCU has had almost from the very beginning, and that is its weak villains, because Michael B. Jordan is amazing in this film. He plays an intimidating villain and a character who, despite his approach and his methodology, you kind of sympathize with, and you are kind of on his side, because what he's saying is technically correct. It's just that his methods and his world outlook is really, really flawed, and it's very dangerous, but you can see how that happened. It's justified in a sense. It kind of says a lot how that last line of dialogue that I mentioned before, none of the characters actually have a response or a rebuttal to it, and I think that speaks volumes with this character's impact on these characters and this world. In fact, in terms of MCU villains, he's jumped right up into the top 3 along with Loki and Ultron, in my opinion. And incidentally, I know this isn't really relevant to anything, but holy cow, Michael B. Jordan is stacked. I mean, whoa. Getting a bit sweaty here. Andy Serkis is also a lot of fun as a secondary villain. We saw him in Age of Ultron, but now it feels like he's really cutting loose and just having a lot of fun in front of the camera. He's a fun villain who you just love to hate. We've also got Martin Freeman reprising his role as Everett Ross, and while he's a nice addition to the film, I do feel like he was a bit of a spare part. They tried to justify his involvement in the final action sequence, which also involves giant rhinos, which look a bit weird, but holy shit, giant rhinos. But yeah, I feel like you could have cut out Everett Ross from the film and not lost a whole lot of substance. And this is where we start getting into the issues with Black Panther, because even though I really, really liked it, there were quite a few problems I had. Firstly, Black Panther clocks in at 134 minutes, and in my opinion, it's about 15 to 20 minutes way too long. And it's not necessarily the world building and introducing all of the characters, that's paced really well, and I wouldn't cut any of that. It's stuff like the opening prologue, which goes on for way too long, and in my opinion actually spoils a twist later on in the movie. There's an action sequence near the beginning of the film which, while technically well done, feels oddly placed because we see all of the Wakandan tech put to use, and then 5 or 10 minutes later we have the introduction to Wakanda, which is meant to be a big grand reveal, but that action sequence already showcased a lot of that technology, so the reveal feels kind of muted. The movie takes a turn at the beginning of the third act, which is meant to raise the stakes for the entire supporting cast, but you can see the outcome coming from a mile away. And the big climactic battle with these Wakandan armies and giant rhinos, it looks cool, but it feels like it's going on for a bit too long. Even the first post-credit scene is really oddly placed. It feels like it should have been the very end of the movie before the credits rolled, but for some reason it's just plonked in the mid-credits. Like, what happened here? And there's also just a couple of personal issues for me. Like, I feel like Lupita Nyong'o's character was really underwritten, and Michael B. Jordan, while he's amazing, he is absent for quite a long stretch of the film. But in spite of all of these issues, I really, really like the film, and it's kind of akin to Wonder Woman from last year, where I feel the whole is much better than the sum of its parts. Wonder Woman is far from a perfect movie. It's got a really big problem with the third act, and some of the special effects aren't great. But everything the film is standing for, and the performances, and the first two acts, and the world building, and basically just everything the film amounts to, is able to counteract those issues I had. Same with Black Panther, everything from the costume design by Ruth Carter, which is absolutely amazing. The more grounded cinematography done by Rachel Morrison, who incidentally has just come off an Oscar nomination for Best Cinematography for Mudbound, being the first woman to be nominated for that award. And the African and tribal-inspired score by Ludwig Göransson. Black Panther not only feels and looks and speaks and walks and talks like a very different MCU movie, it walks and talks and thinks and speaks and everything like that very differently from almost any other blockbuster out there. It feels like a massive breath of fresh air. Its cast is great, its story and themes are really potent and relevant. And even though the CGI rhinos, I keep going on about that, don't look particularly good, I really appreciate the ambition. A movie with some notable issues and quite a few imperfections, but something I hugely appreciated, enjoyed, and would highly recommend. Hail to the King, I give Black Panther 4 stars out of 5, and of course, stay through the credits. Hey folks, thanks so much for watching this video, and oh my goodness, who are these names? Who are these awesome, really cool people? Well, they are my patrons. They help to keep the lights on here at Trilbee Reviews. They get early access to some of my content, and also including my podcast, the Film Brits podcast. They also get to be a part of the podcast by asking questions and submitting topics and such, so if you would like to help support the content and also get involved in the podcast and other videos, and also get your names in the credits like these handsome devils, then please consider becoming a patron. Links in the description below.